We didn't reinvent the wheel, but it was just all about strategy and mindset, kind of freeing up yourself from limiting beliefs and going with the strategy and being disciplined in doing day in, day out, the boring work. And that's how basically every business grows. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Welcome to the High Voltage Business Builders, a show where we interview entrepreneurs growing and scaling their income through e-commerce and showing you the path to make your first or next million. All right, folks, welcome back. So if you are an Amazon seller and you are breaking into the 4, 5, 6 figures, maybe you're on your way to 7 figures and you're looking for a way to increase your time productivity, pull back and standardize some procedures, then you should understand something that we're going to discuss today. And this episode is for you. We've got my good friend and one of the community members of Voltage Business Builders here with me today, Gianmarco, and we're going to talk about what it takes to actually get into an 8-figure position, to understand what the 1% of Amazon sellers actually do in this market to standardize and create procedures of growth. So for those of you who are in growth mode, okay, what I call the 4 pillars of success within Amazon, that is making sure profitability, number 1, growth, number 2, that's organic growth, PPC growth of a profitable nature. And then today is really going to talk about scale, which is the third component of this metric. Scale being, how do I actually take something that's working? How do I take my $1 million business and make it 5? My 2 and make it 4, and my 5 and make it 10. How do I move to that next level of vertical horizontal growth within Amazon so that I can understand my opportunity for this e-commerce, which if you understood anything I've talked about so far in any of my podcasts, that is building with the exit in mind. So as I bring him on today, these are one of the things we're going to talk about. We're going to focus today on growth and scale because these are important components of building that model. Welcome to the call.
Hey, Neil. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here for the second time.
Yeah, I believe this is our second round, so this is cool. It's good to have you because this is an important topic, especially as I mentioned, for those who are already selling. If you're a new seller, I would encourage you to pay attention as well because this is something you need to keep in mind for an opportunity, right? You may not be able to execute some of the things we're going to talk about today, but you should be listening to it in anticipation of where you need to go on your roadmap and your journey with e-commerce. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Amazon channel today, but understand that this is an e-commerce, this is a principle of business that he's going to unpack for us today. So you really need to listen to that as you're learning and growing and earning in the marketplace. So Gianmarco, tell us a little bit about some of the maybe top 3 things, 7 things that are on your mind right now as we head towards the growing season of building new businesses and scaling them.
Yeah. So for sure. So basically, I'm in the phase to scale from 7 to potentially 8 figures. And, what I'm focusing on is basically starting to find, more categories to sell at, building my team and, start building a real brand. Okay. So my scaling model, it's based on a number of elements. So whenever you're starting from scaling from 0 to 7 figures, you want to just focus on like one brand, one product, one category, okay? And just focus just everything on that. Once you reach the 7-figure level, then you will need to start to expand categories, expand marketplaces, look at more potentially other marketplaces like Europe, for example, or Walmart, or Shopify's other marketplaces. And then scaling by building the team and putting in place like something that is a real brand, which you maybe in the beginning you still don't know too much. You don't need to do too much about branding in the beginning, although it's, as you said, if you start with the end in mind, it's going to be everything much easier. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, it's good to hear that because that's actually some of the fundamentals we're practicing within the community, as you know, which is amazing because we need to get to that position where we can extend ourselves into our business. And focus is important because I know when we first started talking here some 6 months ago, you were working on multiple brands and trying to segment multiple things. How has that gone, that focus, that change, that driving? What has been the reciprocal benefit for you? What has that focus brought for your business?
Well, I would say everything, for me started to started to grow as soon as I started focusing more on, what I just said, one brand, one product, one category. And basically, I've been able to grow from 0 to 7 figures in 12 months approximately. And that only happened, when I started, just focusing on one. So, I'm a big believer, obviously, on systems and processes, right? So, because that's all I do also with my podcast. But I always preach that, these processes can bring you only up to a certain level, but, the strategy is what makes you scale and grow. So in this case, the strategy is to stick with one product, one brand, one category, one supplier. Okay. So this is, I think, one of the main thing I've been able to accomplish, through this strategy. It doesn't matter if I find, a great product development process, but you always still need to, vet suppliers and do the whole work. But if you stick with just one category, one supplier, one product, one brand, this is the process that scales. The strategy in itself, it's what help you scale, because that's going
Yeah.
to be much easier to do everything if you stick with one. That's the
Yeah.
gist of my strategy.
What I tell everybody, and they probably heard me say it before, is riding one horse, right, at a time. Because if you get on multiple horses, you're going to be pulled multiple directions. So, how
Exactly.
did you learn? Like, how did you get into a position of that focus? Like, where was it a mindset change? Was it an opportunity you saw in the market? Like, what was the trigger mechanism that caused you to see that? If someone's listening, what would they be looking for, right?
Yeah, I guess, it's been all my entrepreneurial failures in the past. So I've been doing business since I was 24, and I would say I had a focus problem for sure in the early stages of my career, let's
Yeah.
say, right? So it's something I realized over time that, every time I was, cutting out things, just eliminating more things more and more, and reading books like, for example, essentialism, books about, focusing and, sticking with your plan. That's exactly when I started seeing more success. So I kept focusing and staying focused more and more. And I believe it's still, kind of what basically helped me, stay on track and get the results I've got.
And I think interesting is so much of what you're saying isn't necessarily about the product, because a lot of people focus on the product as a problem oriented solution, which you should, but they think of that as the only problem. What you're actually talking about is more mindset approach to business and the fundamentals of business. Am I mistaken in what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know what my product is, and it's a very common product, and we've been able to succeed, in a market that,
Yeah.
we didn't reinvent the wheel, but it was just all about strategy, yes, and mindset, kind of freeing up yourself from limiting beliefs and going with the strategy and being disciplined in doing day in, day out, the boring work. And that's how basically
Hmm.
every business grows. So you don't have to reinvent the
Yeah.
wheel.
Well, and everybody wants to hire somebody to stop the boring work, or they think they can hire somebody to get themselves out of the boring work. Would you say that's true, or would you say there's some median area in all that?
Well, I mean, that's one of the reason why people are looking for hiring other like VAs, for example, or help in general. I would say, when you're in the growth phase, you must start thinking about building a team, right? Because obviously, in the beginning, it's like you're wearing all the hats, but you might not be great at everything that you're doing, right? So the key to scaling is then giving the right tasks to the right people, because they will be each person will be better at their own job, because again they focus on their doing their job well. And that's how basically you start scaling, because you will outsource most of your time to other people, and then free up yours to do tasks that are more toward like your level of expertise, right? So
Yeah.
that you can contribute more with.
Yeah. Now, at the time we're actually talking about this, we're at the midpoint of the big holiday season. We come through Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and by the time people actually hear this, it'll be a few months if you're listening to this right now since this actually occurred. But tell everybody, how does it work for you? Like, did you have a great fourth quarter in the last year?
Well, so far it's been really great. I think we've been doubling sales maybe during Black Friday, and it's still very strong. I think in November we grew 20% compared to October. And yeah, so the
Excellent.
growth trajectory is going very well. Yeah, for sure.
Good slingshot into the first quarter of this year, which would be 2023. So, what is on your docket for this year? What are you looking at from system, people, processes, optimizations, growth? Talk
Yeah.
about some of the things you're going to be focused on.
So right now I'm working on building the team. So we just hired a new like social media manager. So we're in the phase of growing the brand, doing focusing more on branding. So that's why we're hiring now a social media manager who will take care of, all our social media channels and grow, our presence out off Amazon. Okay. So we have kind of, I would not say we have maximized, our getting the traffic from Amazon, through PPC. There's still room to grow, but I think, because we are actually already the top brand in our niche. So it's kind of maximized, I would say. So we will bring, more traffic from also external sources like Facebook, TikTok, and other social media.
So it's time to start expanding beyond Amazon, which is one of the principles we talk about in the, riding that horse for the first 12 months. And then when you get everything dialed in and you get to become a good seller, focused seller until one thing is successful, then it's time to move out. And that's good to hear because now it's your time to list build and email build and brand market build and multi-channel, which is going to help for that growth and scale factor that we're talking about. You mentioned obviously hiring some additional VAs and stuff. I know that's one of the things that you're focused on helping people do now that you've become very good at it. Everybody has a slightly different variation of things they consider they're good at. Like in our group, we have Sierra and Megan, and they're very focused on creating amazing listings. And they decided and are very good at it. They have a great eye for it. And you have become very focused on the right hiring practices, finding the right people, and ensuring that those people, as we would say, butts in the seats, are in the right place in the right seat on the bus, to borrow from Good to Great and Jim Collins. So what does that process look like for identifying somebody who becomes a great assistant, a great virtual assistant to the company, somebody that helps lift it up and doesn't bog you down in that hiring process that so many people get stuck in kissing frogs, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's actually something that most people struggle with. So we ran a poll on LinkedIn and we found that most people struggle with identifying the right candidate to join their team, right? So it's kind of a common thing that people, create a job post and then, receive maybe 100 of applications. And then, the $1 million question will be like, who's going to be the right candidate to join my team, right? So that's the hardest question to answer. And we found that most Amazon sellers many times are solopreneurs or maybe it's their first venture. So they're not really used to hiring people or they just simply don't have a proper hiring process. So most of the time they go with what I call the old manual method. So which basically means, just screening candidates on manually, let's say, like just looking at the CVs without any help of any structured database, basically and no tools involved. So basically, they will just screen all those CVs and then get a gut feeling of who's the right candidate and interview them without a proper process, just asking random questions. And then, again, having, the final decision based on a gut feeling. So that's
Yeah.
where the main problem lies. People don't have a real hiring process in place. So what I do and what I suggest doing is to basically get the help of a tool that can, structure this process, a tool that can collect all the information from all the applicants and streamline it in a way that it's easy to visualize. And then the most important piece of the process is to create a skill test. So a skill test, it's basically, as the name implies, it's just a test to assess the skills of that person. So basically you're going to give just a small 1 or 2 tasks to that person, which will resemble the tasks that those people will actually do if they were hired. Okay. So you're seeing how they perform on the job without even hiring them and without even paying them. So we do this all the time with all the applicants. We receive dozens of skill test results, and from those results, you can very quickly understand whether that person is a good fit with your business or not. So that's a big part of it. And then also the interviews, you really need to know how to run interviews. Many times we run chat interviews, not like face to face, because most of these people are like great salespersons, and they know how to sell you on camera. And you can be biased. You can just, if somebody is pretty, or this is just like human psychology. You get to say yes easier to certain people depending on how
Interesting.
they look, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we go for like chat interviews to really be as objective as possible, not so we don't see the person in the face. And also what's written, it's much easier to then reassess, more times after the interview. So we run those interviews, and then in the end, we have like a proper structured process for onboarding these people, which is, also a step that most entrepreneurs miss, which is actually one of the most important, because it sets, the pace for the future collaboration with these people. So if you don't onboard them properly, they will already like lose the momentum and the excitement, and they will not perform as well in the job. So these are some, obviously, it's much more complex, but this is like the hiring process that I run in a nutshell. And, it helps you much better understand who is the right candidate to join your team, which in the end, it's a key element of your business, right? So as you grow, you start hiring people, and if you hire the wrong people, it will just drag you down. But if you if you
Yeah, they will.
if you
Yep.
run
You'd
the
be
right
wasting
people.
time and energy hiring the wrong people, firing them, and complaining because now you've spent that time focused on them, not on your business. And of course, the business will suffer through that process. I've seen it countless times with people trying to get through this process. And that you unpacked a lot of things. Each one of those topics we could probably take a lot deeper, but I want to make sure we understand the basic principles here, if people got it, of making sure that you're working through a process of creating the opportunity to find the right person while trying to remove your biases or their ability to close you, which I've seen happen before too, on, their situation, which may not actually be good for you in the end. They may be just trying to sell in, or you might actually be biased in other ways you don't recognize. And if you create a structured process, like Gianmarco is talking about, then you will have much more success. If you have questions about how to do that and you don't understand everything, or maybe you caught it, but you wouldn't know how to implement it, where can they go to talk with you or learn more information about how to put that structured process in place?
Yeah, for sure. So I do coaching calls. I do have also a tool that I use, that I share with people that they can use as well. So they can find me on LinkedIn, Gianmarco Meli. Maybe you will you will spell that in the show notes.
It'll be in there, yeah.
Yeah, or you can find me also through thesellerprocess.com. I also have a podcast about systems, processes, and SOPs. You can write me at gm@thesellerprocess.com and find this tool that I'm talking about at thesellerprocess.com/hiring system. And for you guys that would like to try, we also have like a $50 off coupon. It's called Voltage 50, that you can use if you would like to try this tool. That is just a one-off investment, and it will be yours forever. And it will help you, on any hiring that you will make in an Amazon business or in any other business that you would like to hire for. So yeah, to me, it was a game changer. I'm not the inventor of this system. I was a user in the beginning, and then I loved it so much that I started implementing it. And since then, I cannot, hire anymore with the old manual way. I only use, the automated way that I've just explained. Yeah, so that's a game changer if you're looking
Sure.
to expand.
Yep. Those of you who are listening, who are part of the Voltage Business Builders coaching and community, there's a resources tab where you can get that information and that coupon inside the membership area. Hit up Gianmarco in our community if you've got any questions. He's a resource for us as well as a member. Applying those strategies and tactics of our game plan and applying his processes and unique way of thinking about hiring has created a huge opportunity for him. And I've just been honored to be a part of that and watch him as he's grown over the last year. And it's such an honor to have you on the call today talking about this and watching to see where you go next, which is so much fun. And I thank you so much for coming on and sharing some stuff with us today.
Thank you very much, Neil. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
If you like this episode, please share it with people you think will enjoy it as well. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for a brand new episode of High Voltage Business Builders.